Hello, hello. Welcome back, everyone, and good morning to you all. Great to be back with you on day number 4 of A Taste of LTC this year. We are having a blast, aren't we, Mark?
We are indeed. Good to see you, man. Hi, everybody.
Likewise. Let me get the banner up. There we go. All right, guys. Today we're doing the same thing we've done the last 3 days, but today's lesson 359. And we've got some really good ACIM nuggets for you today in store for you. So do you want to go ahead and give us 10 centering breaths, Mark?
I will do that. I love how you do it, by the way, but I'm happy to take the lead on this one for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Yeah. So if it's comfortable for you, join us in closing your eyes. We always begin our time together with centering, and Aaron leads us so well with really using the breath to bring us into this present moment. So we'll take nice, slow, long, deep breaths through the nose, hold it, and exhale with a sigh through the mouth, and we'll do 10 of these. So breathe in deeply, imagining breathing up from the root to the crown of the crown chakra. Hold. Exhale. Breathing in. Hold. Exhale. Deep, slow breath in. All the way up to the crown. Hold. And exhale. Breathe in. Hold. Exhale. Breathe in. Hold. Exhale. Feel that body relax more and more. Breathing in. Hold. Exhale. Breathe in. Hold that breath at the top. And exhale. Couple more. Breathing in deeply. Pull that breath in. Rise it up to the crown. Hold. And release. Breathe in. Hold. Exhale. And our final one, breathing in. Deeply, deeply, deeply lifting your attention up, and we'll hold it for longer. Hold. Let that breath hold expand you and bring you into the present moment. And exhale. Knowing that breath has united us, it has brought us into this present moment, and it has made us available to receive the wisdom and the miracles that are here for us today in this lesson. We are blessed and we are guided. Opening your eyes when you're ready.
Aho.
Aho.
And so it is. All right, people. Let's get into today's lesson. I'll throw it up on the screen. Lesson 359 of A Course in Miracles. I love how, Mark, by the way, the lessons at the end of the year, the titles are like 3 to 5 times longer than usual. Usually the lessons are very short. The titles are pretty succinct, but these ones are just super juicy. So they like to have a little bit longer titles. All right, here's the lesson. And I'll let you read it, Mark.
Awesome. Lesson 359. God's answer is some form of peace. So right there, I got to pause for a moment, because that tells us that what is guaranteed when you're receiving this solution, the miracle, the answer from God, peace will begin to prevail in your mind, in your emotions, in your awareness. That's the pointer that lets us know that you are open and receiving. In this, all pain is healed, all misery replaced with joy, all prison doors are opened, and all sin is understood as merely a mistake. Goes on to say, Father, today we will forgive your world and let creation be your own. We have misunderstood all things, but we have not made sinners of the Holy Son of God. What you created sinless, so abides forever and forever. Such are we. And we rejoice to learn that we have made mistakes which have no real effect on us. Dan, Aaron, there's so much in here. Sin
Sometimes you just got to pause.
Sin is impossible. And on this fact, forgiveness rests upon a certain base more solid than the shadow world we see. Help us forgive, for we would be redeemed. Help us forgive, for we would be at peace. And, real quickly, I'm going to invite you. Sometimes I just flip the word forgive out because it can be a word that can be confusing to us. And a simple change out is you could say, let go. So even in that first sentence, you could say, Father, today we will let go, let loose your world and let creation be your own. And what this says is that we have projected onto God's world a dualistic way of thinking, fear. Fear we have projected onto the world. And this is what we look through. This is like the fear filter. We look upon God's world. And so it makes us incapable of seeing a world of peace, of seeing in our minds and knowing within our minds and hearts God's world, which is free of pain, which is free of misery. You see, that the Course says is the reality that exists right in back of the projection of fear that you're looking through. So when it says, God, we're going to forgive your world, it really says we're going to let that overlay of fear just be peeled off of it so that it's right there shining in your own world and in your own mind. So I could go on for an hour, Aaron, but I'm going to pass to you and see.
And we probably will on this one.
We probably will.
Remember, Mark, we did Forgive 2020 many years ago? A lot of you guys on this live call may remember that we did. This is when we kicked off Living the Course for the first time. We did this big 4-day event. And what was it, Mark? It was forgive others, forgive the world, forgive God. Was that 3 or 4?
Yeah, forgive yourself, forgive others, forgive God, forgive the world. So
4 days. Day 1's forgive yourself, and then forgive others, forgive the world. And then day 4 was forgive God. And we got, a lot of interesting questions on that day of like, well, what do you guys mean forgive God? God doesn't make any errors or mistakes that need to be forgiven. And the key answer is, of course not. Right. But you think God does. So it's really your own projections you're forgiving, right? That is what this lesson is about. It's all about forgiving God's universe of the projections we have laid upon it, as Mark was touching on. And, this is something the ego does very strongly in our minds, right? It creates these projections of evil, bad, wrong, accidents, mistakes. This shouldn't be happening. That shouldn't be happening. And when we judge reality or the world or God's universe like this, we create the most amount of negative karma in our lives because it's as if we're fighting against reality at all times. And that is really what the ego is. It is the mind's war against reality. And so how can we expect to have peace if our mind is full of attack thoughts about the world we see? This is what ACIM says from, the very beginning of the text is one of the lessons is, I can escape from the world I see by giving up attack thoughts. Such a great lesson title. Yeah. The Course also stresses that ego sees death as a kind of liberator and a kind of salvation from this evil, cruel world I'm stuck in, And it's this upside down, topsy-turvy perception. I pulled out a quote this morning from the Course that says, there is a risk of thinking death is peace because the world equates the body with the self whom God created. Yet a thing can never be its opposite, meaning death can never bring peace, as the ego thinks. So we cannot escape the world we see by judging it or attacking it. But exactly the opposite. The Course says you can escape from the world you see by giving up attack thoughts, by relenting from judgment, by forgiving. And so this is the key lesson, you guys. This is what, at least for me, Mark, what helps me to live the course the most is when I come to full terms with the implications of what I am doing in my mind. Like, what am I really doing? Especially if you have a heart for God, if you love God and want to follow God and be devoted to God, you want to look deeply into the consequences of these kinds of negative judgmental perceptions, because here's what we're doing when we judge God's universe. I'll actually stop sharing my screen now. Here's what we're doing when we judge God's universe. Imagine if you go to a kid's birthday party, your friend's birthday party for their child. And so you bring your kid over and you walk in and you see a big scary looking clown standing in the middle of the living room when you walk in. And you've got this lifelong trauma with clowns, right? You're just terrified of clowns. And so you get triggered and you jump on the clown and throw him to the ground and start raining down punches on the clown. And you start yelling to the kids, "Get out of here while you still can, kids." And all the kids, running everywhere. It's just absolute disaster. So the adults hear all this commotion in the living room. They run in, they see you beating up this poor clown, and they jump on you and they pull you off the clown. And then the clown sits up and pulls the mask off, and it's your best friend. Isn't that a good analogy?
So good.
I came up with that like 10 minutes ago.
That's one of Aaron's best gifts, y'all, is like he could just take
the analogy maker.
And they just like your mind just kind of just forms a story that just links it. Like, that's so good. That's exactly how it works.
It's exactly what it is. You're doing that to God's universe. And that's what this lesson is saying, right? We project evil ideas onto God's perfect, holy, sacred universe, which is already one with God, not separate as we suppose. And so, in reality, we're already walking in a perfect universe, but in our minds, we're living in a nightmarish, evil, scary universe that we're trying to attack and escape from and all this stuff. And we are just ignorantly unaware of the divine laws of free will and karma and cause and effect that are governing everything. We just simply haven't learned those laws yet. And so we don't have the awareness of them. And so that's why we attack and judge the world. And so you can't gain the spiritual intelligence you need to see the perfect universe all around you, which God created, as long as you're still attacking it. So the Course says, give up attack thoughts, give up judgments of the world, forgive God's universe that you think is bad and evil. And once you've removed your labels of it, you might actually start to see that it's already as perfect as God is. And that's one of the things we teach here in LTC a lot, is like, you've got to see reality clearly if you're going to have peace. Because one thing the Course stresses is there is no peace in illusions in your mind. When you're creating a world of separate selves and separate people and places and things, and God is separate from the world and all this evil is taking place, good luck having peace of mind. It doesn't work. You have to see the way the Course invites you to see, which is, look, there's just sanity and insanity in God's universe. That's it. People are either aware of reality or they're confused about reality. But there is no evil or sin or all of these labels we apply to God's universe that imply that there's like a second power in God's universe fighting against God. It's good versus evil, God versus the devil. And maybe sin is going to win. Who knows? It's not looking good for God right now. And this is what religion kind of teaches us to see. The devil is the big bad wolf, God's arch nemesis, prowling around, foiling God's plans. And the Course says, evil does not exist. Sin does not exist. Satan does not exist. All of these are projections of the human mind and human ignorance. And so we can only solve the problem of the evil world we think we're living in here in our minds, because it isn't actually there in reality.
Yes. Yeah. So well said. Back to your idea of peace, because this is an important key that takes people a while to shift from. Because back to the title of this, God's answer is some form of peace. All pain is healed in your mind, as Aaron pointed to. All misery replaced with joy in your mind. All prison doors are opened in your mind. This is where the problem exists, and this is where the Course does the work. But the mental obsession with continuing to look at the world that is broken, to look at the ego's world and go, get rid of this misery here, to go outside ourselves, to think it will be solved there. This is the primary foundational piece that the Course releases us from, to give up looking at the world to find the solution. And back to your other idea, Aaron, because it's so important, This idea of peace being primary. Another example, people get upset. They go, what about this? What about this? And you're already outside, one step at least outside of God, because your peace has been robbed. And that's what the ego can count on. The ego can count on the moment you get upset about something out there, you have disconnected temporarily from your access to God. Peace is required, a peaceful mind. This is where the Course leads us to. I want to add one more thought to this, Aaron, because this is standing out for me all the way down to the last two sentences. I love this. We're bringing you to the end of the lessons here, our friends. Like we're giving you a taste of what's here at the end of the journey. There's everything that leads you up to this. And here we are at the end of the year, and the sentence say, help us forgive, for we would be redeemed. Help us forgive, for we would be at peace. This is a key component of the Course. It's teaching us to rely upon. The Course calls it the Holy Spirit. You can call it the higher self. You can call it the Christ self. Whatever name resonates with you, that's something within you that already knows that it knows, and it is in alignment with God. This is what we're turning to. We're becoming humble, and we're asking for the help to do this, because what it says to me is it's not your job. You're not capable of moving from a split mind of fear to a unified mind of love. But inside you is that help, and it will do it for you. But we've got to practice and learn how to ask for help. Because I don't know about you, Aaron, I was not taught how to ask for help for the things that I need in the world. I was taught that asking for help has a little bit of embarrassment in it. Asking for help means I must have missed something, or there's something wrong with
sign of weakness.
There's a sign of weakness. And so the Course, like all things, is flipping this over and making us go, oh, asking for help, that has become, seriously, that has become my first move. My first move, man. I am like this. I move through my world going, I can't, I don't want to. I don't want to waste my time any longer trying to figure this out when there is help. So I also want to bring that forward, because that really spoke to me.
That's a great point. Amazing point. Because if you know that of myself, I can do nothing, then you would ask for help immediately in every situation. You would be living from a state of full surrender to the will of God, which was yesterday's lesson that we went over. Before we do the meditation, Mark, I'm wondering if I can give you guys a really quick Bible history lesson that's going to really bring this home, I think.
Let's go.
I think you guys are going to love this. So most people don't know this, Mark, but in early stages of Christianity, we're talking very late first century to early second, mid second century, the beginning of Gnosticism, what we know as Gnosticism, started from a man named Marcion of Sinope, who was, I think he was the son of a bishop, kind of proto-Catholic, early Catholic Church bishop. And he had, he wound up finding Paul's letters, Paul's epistles. And he was like, oh my gosh, this guy, Paul, he figured it out. He got it all right. And so he actually created what many scholars consider technically the first Christian canon, which was the epistles of Paul and a copy of the Gospel of Luke that was heavily altered and redacted. He kind of changed the things he didn't like in it. And that was his Bible that he carried around. And this guy, Marcion, amassed a huge following, and Gnosticism just exploded and erupted in the early second century, to the point where around the mid second century, many scholars say it's very likely that the Gnostics outnumbered the Catholics at that point. There was more Gnostic Christians probably at that point, because if you look at the early church fathers, every church father, Irenaeus, Tertullian, Origen, they're writing all these anti-Gnosticism books, against Marcion, against heresies. And it's a clear sign that they're trying to refute this ideology that's spreading like wildfire. And so if you don't know what Gnosticism is, it's basically, it can also be synonymous with Docetism or Marcionism. It's basically this idea of duality, right? Earth bad, heaven good. This is a bad realm we're in. We can escape this bad realm with secret knowledge. If we have the secret knowledge, which is that Jesus was the final atoning sacrifice, and if you confess him with your mouth and believe in his resurrection, you'll go to heaven. No, I'm not kidding. That's the
I
secret
know. I
knowledge.
just love the way you did it.
So historians and scholars look at this and they're like, actually, Catholic Church today is highly, highly influenced by early Gnosticism or Marcionism because they were competing against these ideas and had to find ways to harmonize them with their beliefs to get rid of these heretics that they couldn't get rid of. And so I want to show you the parallels here that's I think is going to blow your mind because in my opinion, Mark, Gnosticism is still the wrong view of the universe, but it's a little bit closer to the truth than is Orthodox like Christianity or Catholicism, which is really kind of at the very lowest end of the Hawkins scale of consciousness, down in guilt and shame, and you're a worthless, evil sinner, totally depraved. All you can do is confess that Jesus was butchered on your behalf, and now God can finally muster up the ability to forgive you. I mean, it's the very lowest rung of spiritual intelligence possible. It really is.
Yeah.
But Gnosticism, although it's higher, it's not that much higher. But what Gnosticism did correctly, or Marcion did correctly, is he realized a lot of things that are true, but he made them literally true rather than metaphorically true, such as duality, right? They began to see this truth of duality, that the ego projects a dualistic universe. Only problem is they didn't see it as a projection of the mind. They saw it as literally being true. So I'm going to share my screen and run you through these different components of Gnosticism in the 2nd century. And we'll see the parallels here pretty quickly. Yeah, I'll just do it this way. So Marcionism said that there's 2 distinct gods. So they said that the God of the Old Testament was this evil demiurge, and that the God that Jesus preached was the true Father in heaven. So we have like a God of the world, God of heaven. They're enemies and they're not the same. Very dualistic. They rejected the Old Testament as, those Jews, they got it all wrong. There's nothing good in the Old Testament. Forget it. It's a big, huge mistake, a blunder of the past. We don't need it anymore. Jesus was the son of a higher God, not the God of this world. So Jesus really wasn't part of the world. He was from somewhere else. Docetic Christology, which again is this idea that Jesus was purely spiritual. And this is really interesting, Mark. I think you're going to start seeing the parallels here. Marcion believed that Jesus was never in a physical body. And this was the biggest heresy that the Catholic Church had against the Gnostics, was that, no, Jesus had to be a person because otherwise his death on the cross couldn't really atone for anything. And so they're taking away the atonement, right, is what they were criticizing him of. But he believed Jesus was only in appearance a physical body. Really, he wasn't at all. He was only pure spirit. Salvation through faith alone, as Paul said, you're saved by secret knowledge, secret beliefs that you keep in your brain, and those beliefs in your brain give you salvation. Rejection of the law and prophets, and opposition to the 12 apostles of Christ. So as some of you probably watched in my Gospel Conspiracy series, Paul goes pretty hard in the paint against the disciples and mocks them and curses them and belittles them. And Marcion said, hey, Paul got that one right for sure. The 12 disciples missed Jesus. They didn't understand him. They got obsessed with the Old Testament law, and they totally misunderstood their own master. But Paul got him right. Okay, so these are the fundamental components of Marcionism or Marcion Gnosticism. Let's look at these parallels now. Too many slides here. There we go. So 2 distinct gods, that's duality. That's what the ego does. It projects a dualistic universe. Rejection of the Old Testament represents judgment against the past. Interesting, right? The past was a big, huge mistake. The past is not worth remembering. It's only to be hated, never to be forgiven, etc. Jesus, as the son of a higher God, is the ego's view that the Christ is separate from me. The Christ is above me, higher than me, is the idea. Docetic Christology represents the rejection of the body in the sense of like judging yourself as a body. And if the body is not good enough, your entire sense of self gets rejected, right? The ego judges itself purely based on the physical body. And so it's actually a kind of judgment or rejection of the body. Salvation through faith alone, I can save myself. I'm the doer. We know that's an ego belief. Rejection of the law and the prophets is the denial of universal law. So this is another thing ego does, as we've touched on, is the ego blinds us from the universal laws that are actually governing everything. And the ego thinks that it's acting alone. It's uninfluenced. It's in a vacuum of isolation. I'm the doer. I'm all alone. Nothing else affects me. That's this one. And then finally, opposition to the 12 apostles of Christ represents the ego's separation from others. The ego judging other people as bad, evil, wrong, etc. And so this is Gnosticism, right? And Gnosticism in this way is a projection of the human ego. It is the Gnostics of the 2nd century did exactly what the ego does on a very literal scale. They said all these things are literally true. We really are separate from God. There really is a dualistic universe. The body really is bad and to be rejected, et cetera, et cetera. And so the Course says projection makes perception.
Yes.
One of the core components, right? You will always see the world you want to see. You will always see your own judgments, your own labels, your own biases everywhere you look. And so the world you think you see will seem to have a lot of convincing evidence. What do you mean, Aaron and Mark, that the world's not a bad, evil place? Of course it is. Have you read the news lately? How can you say this is all perfect with all these bad things happening? And so here's what we're saying. The blueprint, the framework of the universe is perfect in every way.
Right.
And one of is free will. God has given everyone, every sentient being, the free will to do and think and feel and please as you please, right? God will never infringe on free will. And so God has to allow people to be ignorant of truth, just as God allows people to be in knowledge of the truth. But when people are ignorant of the truth, which is the vast majority of the planet, they go around attacking each other, forming tribal camps and ideologies that go to war with each other and all the stuff we see. And so when you see the evils of the world, there's a way you can look at all of it and say, wow, look at this perfection at work. God is giving all beings the free will to do as they choose and never, ever being able to escape the consequences. That's why it's a perfect universe. Free will doesn't mean you have the ability to escape the consequences of your actions. Oh, no. It only means you have the ability to choose your actions in this way. You have the ability to follow what you think is right. But when karma comes for you, because you've been judging, attacking, separating from the world, the universe is essentially giving you a reflection. It's saying, hey, you've been thinking this way, you've been treating other people this way, and here's the consequence of doing that. And so you attract negative circumstances, breakups, loss of job, loss of family, money, whatever happens, and you continue to complain at the universe for it. Why are you doing this to me? You're so cruel and unfair. But actually, the universe is simply perfectly mirroring your negative thoughts and judgments about the universe and giving you a chance to look at them through your own life. And so that's why we say the universe is perfect, not because there's no suffering in the universe. Of course, there's suffering in the universe. Even that's part of the perfect design. And so the Course says, look, you have to remember that you and all things are eternal. And so while you may suffer in this life, and many people suffer in this life, it is always the heart of love to alleviate suffering. We never use this as a gaslighting concept of, oh, come on, you're not even the body, you're eternal, get over your suffering, none of it's real. No. That's not how we use this truth. If people aren't ready for this, we don't try to shove it down their throats. We keep it to ourselves. Don't cast your pearls before swine, as Jesus said. But you can inwardly know, although this person is suffering, the suffering is not actually affecting who they are. They're the Christ, the divine self within them. And so their soul is simply struggling to learn important lessons about how to see the universe correctly. And so I love this line, Mark, in this passage today that says, we have misunderstood all things.
Yeah.
It's a misunderstanding, not an actual problem. But we have not made sinners of the holy sons of God. What you created sinless, so abides forever. Meaning all my attack thoughts and judgments don't actually make it true in reality. They're always left in my own mind, and I have to experience the consequences of them. We use the analogy of holding on to a box of nuclear waste, trying to go, look, who am I going to give this box of nuclear waste to injure and hurt somebody I hate? But as you're looking around, you're holding the box that's poisoning you. That's what judgments are, is you never can escape the consequences of your own mind. Yeah. And so the Course comes along to say, look, you are seeing the world as you are, not as it is. You are seeing it as you see yourself. And that is the beginning of true liberation.
Yeah. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate you pulling that line out, because the Course really is non-negotiable. Many times we have misunderstood all things. Again, brings us to great humility, where you even bring forward like these great scholars, all this great teaching, these centuries of work.
Yeah.
And fear can always and will always, the ego will always swoop in and hijack and manipulate and cause war. It's just what the world does when we're looking through these perceptions. And so to surrender all things, is really like, okay, I'm getting this all wrong here. But as you're pointing out so beautifully, that framework in back of it, that perfection never, ever, ever goes away. And, the course will make you want it more and more and more. You want that framework.
Yeah.
You become passionate about, I want God's world. That's synonymous with the perfect framework that is within the universe. God's world means the same thing. It's got a new
Yeah.
insight from you on that one. That's good.
Okay. Since I love analogies, I'll give you this last one before we meditate.
All right.
This is a lot like what it is as well. We are in the most gorgeous ballroom you've ever seen, or the Vatican or something, with just unbelievable beauty and artistry all around you. And yet the Vatican, or the beautiful place that we're in, is full of insane people in straitjackets, right? That are on tons of psych drugs, and they're just walking around yelling at themselves and stuff. And you're like, man, what a pity they can't see the beautiful location that they're in. They don't have the ability to appreciate the majesty all around them. And as you're watching them, attacking each other, spitting at each other, doing things insane people do, you're not denying that insane people are doing insane things. By saying that this ballroom that we're in is utterly gorgeous and beautiful, you're not denying what the insane people are doing. You're just accepting that they can't see or appreciate where they are. So two things can be true, right? We can already be in a perfect universe and acknowledge that people are unaware of it and not realizing where they are. And so we can't hold that against them. We should just feel the loving obligation to try to show them, right? And so to show somebody means you got to see it first. You got to live in the universe God created, where you see the beauty and perfection of God in everything. And there's really no better way to live your life than with this deep conviction that I am already a perfect being walking in a perfect universe.
Yeah. And we have the choice. We have the option to either judge the people walking around in straitjacket and go, you stupid idiot, why can't you see this?
Yeah.
You're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can, with all the compassion, love in our hearts, go, they just don't see yet, but they can and they will. That's what the Course teaches us to do for everyone. They've forgotten. Will you hold them in their forgetting, or will you help them become free from it? And of course, your heart will always serve someone else's freedom. It's just what it does naturally.
Yeah. Amen, brother. Preaching again.
All right. Why don't you lead us into a few minutes of embodying this?
Well, since I've been blathering on today, I was going to pitch it to you.
Oh,
if you're open.
Yeah. I'm happy to do that. I was enjoying your blabbering.
Thank you, my friend. Well, I enjoy your meditation.
All right, everybody, let's take this lesson deeper. Join us in closing your eyes again. For this one, we'll just use the title of this, which, as Aaron pointed out, is longer. So breathe in these words. God's answer is some form of peace. Breathing this in. God's answer is some form of peace. And God's answer resides in me. So now this answer, this peace, is attainable. God's answer in me is some form of peace. All pain is healed, and all misery replaced with joy. In the peace of God, inside of you, all pain is healed, all misery replaced with joy. As the observer, imagine your mind as a storehouse, like an airplane hangar, just a gigantic place. And it is temporarily filled with misery and suffering. and see yourself standing in this storehouse. Shelves and shelves and shelves of lies and stories and false beliefs and fears. And you can stand in the peace of God right in the middle of it and say, all this can be replaced with joy. Everything here that is not of spirit, of love, can be replaced. And just for the fun of it, for the creativity of it, imagine all these shelves just beginning to just disappear and dissolve as joy takes over. The light of joy begins to fill the entire storehouse. Everything else other is just disappearing, being purified as you stand in the center of God's peace and you say yes to joy. The thoughts, the fears, the beliefs, the stories, that which has been hijacking and taking up room in your mind is being released and replaced with joy. All prison doors are open. Imagine in your mind the windows and the doors of consciousness 360 degrees wide open and welcoming the sunshine of the Spirit to stream in, multiplying the joy and the peace, streaming in through the windows, through the open doors. No longer is your mind a prison. It is flung wide open, and it now becomes the home, the very place where peace and joy prevail. The last one says, all sin is understood as merely a mistake. All this that I thought was binding me and holding me forever hostage, it's just a mistake. I just forgot. Feel the lightness of that. Say that out loud. And if you can, add some laughter. Even just faking the laughter. The Course says when you laugh, you remember just the mistake. I just forgot that I am forever free in God. The peace of God always prevails in my soul, and joy is my natural state of being. Breathe this in. Bring that storehouse energy, that wide open space of joy and peace. And imagine breathing it right into your heart, placing it right in the center of your being. This is my identity. This represents the mind within and the mind without, purified, anchored in peace, vibrating in joy, wide open to receive more miracles, more remembering, and all the opportunities that God has for you to be joy, to be love, to see others not as bound, but as eternally free. This is your calling. This is what you came here for. And this is your moment to receive it, to believe it, and to just say yes. Breathing in. Allow this to bring a gentle smile to your face. As you begin bringing your attention back into the room that you're in, bring this energy and this awareness with you and allow yourself to just sit in it as you open your eyes and look upon the world.
Well, that was a humdinger, my friend.
Not good with the analogies, but I can let guided experiences stream.
You sure can, brother. That was amazing. Thank you for that.
That was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to like, imagine if you spent every morning just meditating on an idea like that.
Right.
I'm already living in a perfect universe. I forgive all my judgments on the world I think I see. I accept that this is God's universe. This is my Father's world. And so I'm perfectly home and safe and at peace here. What if you started your day like that? Just imagine the difference it would make in your mind as you kind of install that intention first thing in the morning. It goes to work throughout your day. And that is why we love doing the lessons first thing in the morning. And we do them together in the mornings in LTC, because it just primes you for your day to start, like you start tuning in more, right? And seeing these lessons like, oh, that's what it means to say I projection makes perception. Like I'm actually seeing my judgments of that person right now, not the Christ, not the divinity of that person.
Right.
So start your day with us with these lessons. I mean, that's the magic of doing it together, is we get on the call, and it's just so much fun to meet your family, your LTC family every day. And then we talk about the lessons together. So many insights come up. It's just the best medicine for spiritual healing.
Absolutely.
So we're going to reserve, as usual, about 10 or 15 minutes for questions about LTC. We got 2 more days left before the end of the year, when our whole new LTC year begins on January 1st. We'd love to have you guys join us. We got the link in the YouTube video you can see there, and I'll put it in the chat. So any questions you guys have on living the course, feel free to ask, or about the lesson today. We tend to get a lot of questions about this lesson in particular, or this course idea that we're living in a perfect universe, and the only problem is our judgments of it. That tends to be one of the more controversial course themes, I think, Mark, but that's why it's one of my favorites to teach.
Yeah. Well, it triggers what I call the whatabouts.
Yes. The whatabouts. What about this? What about that?
What about?
There's got to be an exception somewhere, right?
Exactly. I'm seeing it.
Yeah. Okay. So let's look at some questions that are coming in.
And thanks for bringing the questions forward, y'all. It really helps us all grow.
Yeah. Good questions get good answers, as we like to say.
Yeah.
Stanimir says, is all suffering and unease a result of self-sabotage? Well, so suffering, yes. Unease, I would say no. I would say that the world we live in, this third density world, is like challenge and difficulty and pain is unavoidable to a certain degree, right? You trip and fall and skin your knee, it's going to have some unease. Yeah. But it's not unease that's actually the problem, because when we learn to just accept what arises, whether pain or pleasure, then we can experience unease or challenge or difficulty or even physical or even emotional pain without suffering. Because suffering is the story we tell ourselves about the pain, what the pain means about us, what the uneasiness means about our future and past. Fear. That suffering is the mental projections that we give to the challenges of life. What the Course says is, hey, all things are lessons that God would have me learn. Meaning even the most difficult challenges in my life have so much gold for me. There's a gift in this. If I can only learn the lesson God is showing me through this challenge or this unease, I will become a much more enlightened version of myself at the outset. So when we don't look at life that way, as everything is ultimately a blessing, whether God blesses us through temporary pleasure or temporary pain, every experience is temporary, but always leads to our highest good. And our highest good is eternal, right? Meaning whatever we gain spiritually speaking, every lesson you learn from your life, all the wisdom you gain from life is an eternal gift you give yourself. You never lose that. And so God uses the temporary to give you the eternal, which is one of the aspects of perfection of the universe we're living in.
Nice. I think it's almost a chicken and the egg question. It's like suffering is a state of mind. Self-sabotage is the kind of the patterns that come from our suffering beliefs. And then self-sabotage, those patterns take over us, and then they reignite the suffering. And then you're sort of like swimming in, what came first, the behaviors or the energy behind it. But the good news is you can heal from both ends. You can begin practicing releasing self-sabotaging thoughts and behaviors. Simultaneously, the Course will help you become free of the suffering ideas that are actually causing the outpicturing of some of your choices. So it's really kind of working at it from both ends, where you expedite your healing.
Yeah. And you know what, Mark, before we move on too, the one biggest objection to this idea from the Course that we hear, and I was just talking to somebody on Instagram yesterday about this, is this idea that we would use these truths to sort of gaslight other people. So when people hear us say this, they say, oh, so you're telling me you'll just go tell a mother in Uganda who just lost their child from illness
Mm.
that, oh, you're not really suffering. Your suffering is an illusion. Get over it. You're the Christ. And it's like just hilarious. That, like, imagine doing that to somebody. What an incredibly selfish, unloving thing to do.
Yeah.
We never do or would or should use these truths to beat people over the head with it, like a fundamentalist beats the Bible over people's head. That's not what these are for. If someone's not ready to hear this, you shouldn't say it to them. And you would feel the intuition in that moment of, hey, this isn't the right time to say this. And maybe I don't ever need to say it. Maybe I can show this person the truth that a lot of the suffering they're experiencing is really in their mind and the resistance towards what's happening. But in the moment somebody's suffering, all we're asked to do is to extend a heart of love to them and hold space and be in that silent space with them, being willing to experience the pain they're feeling with them, with that empathy. That's all that love and healing requires of us. We don't need to preach to people about non-duality. But where these teachings do come in is when somebody is ready to heal their mind and they say, look, can you help me understand why my mind causes so much suffering?
There you go.
Say, well, let me tell you.
Now, take a seat.
Yeah. Now let's talk.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's important to point that out because these teachings are for my mind and for my remembering.
Yes.
And to love people from those, not splat them upon people. And that's typically something that can happen to people when they first get into the course and they get real excited and they've got that kind of infatuation stage of like, oh my gosh, I'm getting it.
Yes.
And they want to run and help other people get it, people in their lives. And, it backfires.
It does.
Backfires.
Let's go. Oh, this is a LTC question. If I miss the morning lesson, will it be recorded to view later? Absolutely yes. All the content is available all year round. It gets dripped out in sequence for you guys so that you can literally just wake up and open your 40U app, go to the LTC section and see what content is new for today, and just follow along day by day. But if you miss a lesson, you just go back and watch the lesson. It's all available for review. And even if later in the year, you're like, hey, I want to go back and rewatch that lesson 15 at the beginning of the year, you can do that too. So all the content's available. What books or workbooks do I need to sign up to do the course? So you don't actually need anything technically. We do provide the reading for you in most of the lessons, or you can go to acim.org, which is the website I use to share the screen of the lesson each day. But we do recommend getting the book if you can, because it's just really nice to have the book. And something about reading the actual book is a little bit more powerful for me, Mark, than just looking at a computer screen. But maybe that's just me.
Yeah, and I'm going to pull up quickly. Let's see. There's a couple versions of it, and we like there's a version, of Course in Miracles, it's got within it the preface, the text, the lessons, and the teacher's manual in one. It's a blue book with gold writing. I can't seem to pull it up on my Kindle.
I want to say it's called Volume 3 or
yeah,
Version 3.
Something like that.
It'll be the big blue book with gold letters on it. You can't miss it.
There you go.
Let's see what other questions we got. Feel free to drop them in the chat. When does enrollment close? So we actually leave enrollment open through January, I think.
Yeah.
Because again, you can go back and rewatch the lessons, but just remember we have the 30-day money back guarantee for January. So if you do the pay in full option, if you do the month option, you can just terminate your monthly payment after the first month. But the full payment option, you can get a full refund if you say, hey, this for whatever reason, this isn't resonating for me, no problem. I don't think we really ever have people do that though, Mark, which is kind of fun. But we do give you the option because, again, we want to put the ball in your court to make sure that this is in alignment for you and your path. Yeah.
And because of that, I think the benefit of that is register today so that you can start off day one. To 3 weeks into the month, go, oh, dang it, this is still bothering me. Now I'm going to register. You can do that. And we welcome you anytime during the month. But why miss out on the first couple weeks? Just make that decision today, because as Aaron pointed out, it's kind of you can't lose.
Yeah.
If you decide in 3 weeks you're not going to do it, all good. Yep. You gave it a try.
Yep. And we've gotten this question each day so far. If you're a student member of 40U, your LTC membership includes the student membership. So if you're not a student member and you join LTC, you will also get the student membership in addition to it for no extra charge. And that gives you access to all of our student membership curriculum, the foundation courses and live calls and all that fun stuff. So you get a whole lot of value when you join LTC this year.
You really do. You can spend your life here.
Oh my gosh.
You will not lose.
Because we literally did to create this course. So you can too. Okay, this is a good question. How do you deal with the pain that you feel for those you love that are living in that straitjacket analogy? Yeah, this is a great question, Fabiana. It's one of the biggest challenges, I think, of walking the enlightenment path to heal your mind is that you start to become more and more aware. As you become more aware that you've been causing your own suffering, all of the awareness you gain for yourself, you gain for other people. And that's why you have more and more compassion in your heart, the more you evolve spiritually. Because, like when I was a fundamentalist Christian, for example, I was absolutely, completely unaware of ideas like duality, the belief that I was separate from God. Like it never even had occurred to me that I believed I was separate from God. And so it wasn't until I read the Course in Miracles that I'm like, you believe you're separate from God? No, I don't. I worship God every day. I mean, I love God. I'm not separate. And the more I read the book, I'm like, oh my goodness, it's absolutely true. I think I'm separate from God. I think I'm a sinner and God's mad at me. So if people don't see it, you can't hold it against them. But when you don't see it, you don't see that they don't see it. Does that make sense? And so
There
you
you
judge,
go.
you're stupid, you're ignorant, you're a closed-minded bigot, blah, blah, blah. And you're judging everybody. You're projecting all the parts of your own blindness onto them. So as we evolve spiritually, we become more aware that, oh gosh, people are just lost in ignorance. They're so confused about reality. They don't really know the love of God, even if they're a Christian and say that they do. If you're judging other people, you don't know God's love. And that's what Jesus said in the Gospels. So how do you deal with it? Well, you allow it in, you open your heart to it. You say, okay, if love is asking me to feel the pain the people I love feel as an act of empathy and love, then I'm wide open to that. I will not resist this pain. Being in resistance to the pain you feel is the suffering, really. And something beautiful happens when you're sort of just willing to let yourself be broken by the devastating compassion you can feel for the suffering in the world. Especially the worst forms of suffering we see that happen to children and in war and whatnot, what's happening in Palestine. You can look at these things with just an absolutely broken heart for them, and yet also be aware that all of these people are eternal beings, one with God, can never be separate from God. And so although they are suffering in this dream right now of humanness and the earthly realm, this dream is not who they are. And nobody can escape the love of God in the end. And so you can actually hold both of those together, and they actually become beautiful dance partners where you're not being a Gnostic trying to escape the world of impermanence and all of that. Oh, the world is bad. Everything's corrupt. Let me get out of here. No, you're actually like embracing the world with your whole heart, even though you know it's impermanent. You're saying, look, all of this is for a reason. God created this experience for a reason so we can learn and grow and evolve back toward our divinity. It's the greatest adventure. It's the greatest show on turf, but only I can see it and the people in my life can't. And so let me embody this message that all is well in God's world. We can love each other, forgive each other. If you radiate that energy, you provide the energy of the solution to people in your life, in your own energy field, right? Just by virtue of being around you. The people in your life that are suffering are blessed. They're given hope that they didn't have. They feel a sense of peace through you that they can't feel. So for me, it's like, I'm just going to feel whatever pain arises without resistance. I don't even have to question, how should I deal with this? It's like, you don't deal with it. You accept it and love it and forgive it and offer the energy of the solution.
What you're talking about is being in the world, but not of the world. And
Bingo.
that's what happens.
I could have just said that, Mark.
No, that was good. That was good. I actually want to use a personal story because this is really relevant. You know this, Aaron, and some of you know this. I was very horrifically sexually abused as a child. And it is through the spiritual healing and through the course where I experienced a true forgiveness and healing of that whole story and that whole past. Your healing becomes the gift you give. So I am the one that is capable of sitting side by side in someone who is in the throes of their pain and their unhealed part. I can hold them with my entire heart. I can wrap my arms around them and love them. And I absolutely know their freedom because I was blessed with it. You can't seduce me into telling me that someone can't find their way out. You can't, because I was given that blessing. And so I joyously sit side by side with the person who is in pain, because I feel like God is using me and using the healing that I've been blessed to receive. That's every one of us. The course will heal your mind, heal your heart, transform your perceptions, and then you will be able to sit side by side and not be consumed by it. I think that's the question. How do I be with them but not get seduced into their story? And that
Yes.
does happen. The more you let yourself be freed, the more you will not be seduced. You're just going to love them like little kids who are, a little 3-year-old has a temper tantrum. You don't judge them. You put them on
Right.
your lap and you love them, and they're going to get through it. In 5 minutes, they're going to run off and play.
Yeah.
It's the same energy.
Yes. It's just your ability to look at them and say, this is not who you are, my friend.
Yeah.
I acknowledge the pain you're in. Absolutely. I'm not saying you're not experiencing this. It's all an illusion. Get over it. No. I absolutely feel your pain, and to a mind that is healed, you're in total welcoming of somebody's pain. You would never resist it. And in fact, that by allowing myself to feel it, I'm actually pulling some of it out of them and experiencing it through myself and transmuting it. So your concern becomes, I want to hold the higher frequency for this person I love. So while I can feel the sadness they feel, maybe I even cry with them, but I'm not lowering my perception of them to their level of, you poor victim, this should never have happened to you. It's so unfair. No. I'm holding the higher frequency of who they are. You are the Christ. You are divine. I refuse to see you as a victim of circumstance. We will learn from this. We will heal from this. We will grow from this, and it will be for our highest good. I love you, and I will not see you less than who you are. And that is true salvation for someone, right? If somebody's dangling off a cliff and they're like, help, help, it isn't helping them to go dangle off the cliff next to them and be like, we're sure in for it, aren't we? Oh, that's empathy, right?
You're free right now.
Yeah, like you can't help someone by lowering your frequency to their level.
Yeah.
But that's what ego tries to do. It's like, well, let me show how much I can suffer too, and they can feel better. It doesn't actually help anybody. You can feel empathy while holding that higher frequency. And instead of dangling off the cliff, you lend a helping hand and say, grab my hand. You pull them up to your level. That's what real help looks like.
There you go.
I think we beat that one to death, huh?
Yeah, that's really good. And probably a nice one to end on, I think, unless you've got a burning desire there.
I think so too. I think so too.
Yeah, beautiful. We've got one more day left to hang out and go deeper into this. And we're going to have a wonderful time. So please be sure to join us tomorrow. And it's not too late to share this with your friends and with your family. You want to know how to spread it? Go, hey, you guys, I'm hanging out with these guys and they're dropping some cool wisdom about the course. Here's a link. Come check us out, or join me on YouTube. It's the best way to spread the word.
Easy. Liveinthecourse.com. That's where you can learn all about it, or send it to your friends and family who might be interested. And we would love you to join us next year and tomorrow morning for one more ACIM lesson.
There you go. Peace and love, everyone.
Peace and love, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.